You have no idea how happy I am that my last Pokemon video on the best designed Pokemon, it did pretty well for a channel that barely ever talks about Pokemon, so thank you for that. And as promised, here is a sequel. This time around, we're going to be talking about the worst designed Pokemon in every single generation. These Pokemon have a wild combinations of things that I don't like about them, from the way that they look to the way that they play. And just like the last video, this is my opinion. So please, at the end of the video, let me know what you think are the worst designed Pokemon of every single generation. But without further ado, let's get this Pokeball rolling, shall we? Starting with... So obviously Gen 1 is very nostalgic for a lot of people. It's the generation that got a lot of people that are my age into Pokemon in the first place. But I won't lie, it was actually pretty easy to point out some of the weaker ones this generation. They had to start somewhere, okay? I don't blame them. Let's talk about some honorable mentions first. First up, we got Golduck. I hate that Psyduck is gold and Golduck is blue and the psychic one. Also, they're not psychic type and that always pissed me off. And also Golduck just always been bad competitively forever. It has a pretty cool ability that just never sees use because he's just that bad. Cloud9 would be great on any other Pokemon. Then we got Magmar. I just hate the butts on his head. Like, that's the only reason. I know he's actually not that bad in VGC. Shout out Wolfie. But like, it's the butts on the head. I hated it. As a kid, I was just like, why? Why? Then my final honorable mention will have to go to Hypno. Hypno's just an underwhelming Pokemon. It's never been good. And I always found it to be just kind of a lame design overall. There's something really cool about hypnotizing people, and Hypno is not it. He's just so forgettable. He's easily one of the most forgettable Pokemon of all time. And honestly, him and Golduck both deserve an evolution. It wouldn't even be broken, because if they're gonna give Bisharp an evolution, a Pokemon that is already good, please give Hypno and Golduck a chance. Come on, Game Freak. And I know one Pokedex entry includes the fact that he like stole a kid one time, which is pretty creepy lore, but it's not enough for me to not hate him, okay? But no, the worst designed Pokemon in Gen 1 has got to be Jinx. And come on, if you know me, you know why. It's the racism. Jinx's original design was just straight up blackface. Yikes. But besides that, Jinx is just a really badly designed Pokemon. And this is genuinely a problem I have with a lot of Pokemon designs. I really do not like humanoid Pokemon. Pokemon that are a little bit too human for my taste, like Gardevoir and Hitmonchan. I also really hate when they just have clothes. Is that part of their body? If I took off Hitmonchan's like little skirt thing, would he bleed? I don't like that I have these questions because it's not a good design. But Jinx in particular is just like weird drag queen character. Like what? On top of that, Jinx's typing of Ice Psychic is probably one of the worst typings of all time. I think Jinx was only ever viable in like the first gen, and in Gen 3, Jinx has a little bit of a niche in singles, but otherwise Jinx has mostly been useless for the entirety of its career, and I always feel uncomfortable ever having a Jinx in my party. So yeah, Jinx sucks, and I don't think anyone's gonna fight for Jinx, okay? Gen 2 introduced one of the smallest amount of Pokemon, besides like Gen 6. I think one of those two added more, and my editor will tell me the difference right here. But regardless, because there's not that many Pokemon, there's a little bit less duds, but I still have some honorable mentions. Our first honorable mention has to go to Sunflora. Sunflora, man, you just had so much potential. You are literally a sunflower. So, is it grass fire? No, it's just a grass type, and its base stats are one of the lowest of any fully evolved Pokemon in the entire game. It's a joke, and it desperately needs an evolution. And Sunflora is actually like kind of hard to get in Gen 2, which makes it even more underwhelming when you're like, after you're done getting this dumb Pokemon, it sucks. At least Dunsparce is really, really stupid, and it's kind of awesome how stupid it is, you know? My next honorable mention for Gen 2 is Stantler. It's just a reindeer. You probably forgot it existed. I think it got an evolution later on, and you probably forgot that existed, because that's just how boring Stantler is. And my final honorable mention is Remoraid. It's just a fish, and for literally no reason, it evolves into an octopus, and I always hated that. Always hated that. That is just stupid. Game Freak was on some type of drugs or something. There's probably some Japanese explanation for it, but I don't care. As a 10-year-old, that was dumb as hell. But no, the worst designed Pokemon in Gen 2 has got to be Ledian. Ledian is probably most people that grew up with Gen 2's biggest disappointment when playing the game. You get this cute little ladybug, and then it evolves into this ladybug that's like ready to throw down and can learn all the punches. You can teach it Ice Punch and Thunder Punch, and then like it doesn't have any attack stats? What? And so I'm like, oh, maybe they just didn't want to put a bug fighting type in this game. But then Heracross came out this game, so they just hate Ledian? Ledian, in my opinion, is one of those Pokemon that could be saved with an evolution. And you're gonna hear this a lot throughout this video because a lot of Pokemon can be saved with evolutions, right? Except Magmar, you still suck and your evolution sucks. But Ledian's base stat total is abysmally low. It's like an embarrassmently low amount of base stats. And he has way too many people that do really like him, or at least have good memories of him in their childhood. Please, Game Freak, why did you do him so dirty? It just makes him completely useless on every single level. He just stays in your box for the entirety of your playthrough. And that's just it. Hashtag justice for Ledian. So Gen 3 is my favorite generation of all time. I love Gen 3. I love almost every Pokemon in this game. But because I played the game so much, there are a lot of honorable mentions here because some of these Pokemons were duds. First off, let's talk about Love Disc. It's just really bad. And I know in the lore, like, people would catch Love Disc and like, oh, it's a Valentine's Day thing. But it's like, if you gave me that for Valentine's Day, we're breaking up. The next honorable mention is Cast Form. Cast Form is just so disappointing. It has this really unique gimmick where it will change depending on the weather. So in the sun, it'll be a little sun version. In the rain, it's this cute little rain version. And in the hail, it was this cute hail version. And in the sandstorms, nothing, because they just gave up at sandstorms. Game Freak, why? And on top of that, it just had really, really terrible base stats. So it was never good enough to even be used with its gimmick, which is kind of depressing because this is a really cool gimmick. Also, its base form, why does it look like that? Huh? Then my next honorable mention has to go to Silcoon and Cascoon because this is just lazy. They just copied and pasted one and then just made it darker. Like, come on, Game Freak. And my final honorable mention has to go to Volbeat and Illumise. These two are just these weird bug types. Also, I actually called them the wrong things on purpose to see who would catch it. That's Volbeat and that's Illumise. They suck. I hate them. But no, I think the worst designed Pokemon in Generation 3 has got to be Delcatty. Delcatty is a cat with like that airplane like neck pillow that you have. It looks like a bad evolution. It looks like Eevee went on a trip to Hawaii and just like got a stupid haircut. And it's never been good in any competitive sense whatsoever. And it's probably one of the most forgettable Pokemon of all time. It just doesn't do anything cool or creative or unique. And it's just a really bad normal type in a generation with genuinely pretty cool and unique normal types like Slaking and Lanoon. And then you got this dweeb, neck pillow wearing dweeb. Gen 4 has some great designs and some of the most forgettable ones of all time. So first, some honorable mentions. I brought it up last video, but Licky Licky, worst late evolution ever made. Lickitung deserved an evolution and it wasn't Tweedledee over here. Like, also, what's with like the Wi-Fi symbol? Freaking knockoff Teletubby looking ass. Then we have Fione. Fione is the pre-evolution of Manaphy, except it's not. So there is this game mode called Little Cup where you can play as the baby Pokemon and they're all level 5 and it's really fun. And for some reason, Mienfoo is the greatest Little Cup Pokemon of all time. But because Fione is technically not the pre-evolution of Manaphy, but just like a separate Pokemon entirely, it's not allowed to be in Little Cup, where I think it would shine pretty well. And it's way too bad to be useful in any other version of the game, so it's just completely useless. Like, sure, 80 base stats total would maybe be a little bit too broken in Little Cup, but it just sucks that it can't even have a chance to be banned. Like, Sneasel at least was allowed to be in there for a little bit and then get banned. Scyther was allowed to be in there for a little bit and then get banned. Like, let it just be banned, you know? And if it was a pre-evolution, it could hold the Eviolite item, and with it, it could actually be pretty decent in like some of the more lower ranks of singles. We'll never know. And my final honorable mention for Gen 4 is Kricketune. Kricketune is kind of like a Ledian situation, where he's one of your beginning Pokemon that you use, and then you get to its final evolution, and it's disappointing, but at least it's got a funny mustache. That funny mustache is saving it right now. But no, the worst designed Pokemon in Gen 4 has got to be Lumineon. Lumineon? I think it's Lumineon, like they want to emphasize the neon. Whatever, I'm going to call it Lumineon. Lumineon is just a stupid fish. It has no competitive utility. Most people not only forget it exists, but can probably play the entirety of Gen 4 without even seeing this Pokemon. If this Pokemon completely disappeared off the face of the earth, like, and everyone's memories went away, nothing of value was lost. And I feel like I'm not alone on this because, like, this is just one of the weakest designed Pokemon of all time. I don't even think an evolution would save it because nobody cares enough for it. If you're genuinely a Lumineon fan, why? Please explain why in the comments. I need to know. Okay, Gen 5 has a lot of Pokemon. It was like a restart button that they were trying to do. And there are some duds in this generation. Some of you guys will probably think that my least favorite Pokemon is like Vanillux because it has multiple heads, which I don't love. And it's also just an ice cream Pokemon. And it deserves an honorable mention, but I don't hate it that much. There's something really charming about it still that ultimately feels like Pokemon. Vanillux gets the pass. Another honorable mention is Garbodor. It's literally just garbage. It's not really a great idea for a Pokemon. And I think Muck just did that better. Another honorable mention has to go to Unpheasant, which I think Wolfie calls Unfazant because he just pronounces things weird for some reason. And it deserves to be here because of all the regional birds, it is by far the most forgettable. And it's also just never been good in any single format, singles or doubles or otherwise. And my final honorable mention has to go to the Simmies. Simipour, Simisage, Simisear, they all Simi suck. I just never liked this trio. I always hate when the game gives you like a free Pokemon that ultimately you discard after you get something slightly better, and it's very easy to get something slightly better than this Pokemon. And I just think their designs of themselves look really ugly, and competitively they've all kind of sucked. But no, my actual least favorite Pokemon of Gen 5 might come as a surprise to a lot of people because it's actually a starter. Let me explain. In Gen 3, we got a Pokemon called Blaziken. Blaziken was a unique typing, fire fighting. I loved Blaziken. And as a kid, I'd be drawing on my paper and not doing my homework and stuff. Do your homework. And I would make my own list of Pokemon that I would want, including their types. And I was so obsessed with making a really cool, unique starter trio types. You have a fire, water, and a grass. And I was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if there's like a grass rock or fire dark, a water steel or whatever, right? And I'd get really excited for that. So when Gen 4 came around, we got a really unique starter for Torterra, who was grass ground, and then Empoleon, who was water steel, and then we got Infernape, who was fire fighting again. It was a little disappointing, but it made up for it because all the other Pokemon were really cool. And also Infernape was kind of awesome. So Gen 5 comes around, and it turns out our grass starter is just grass, and our water starter is just water. Okay, so at least the fire starter will be just fire, which is fine. It's like a return to form. But no, they made Emboar a fire fighting type for the third generation in a row. My disappointment was immeasurable. And that long-winded explanation of my disappointment is why Emboar is the worst designed Pokemon of Gen 5. They really couldn't come up with a different typing for Emboar, or God forbid, you just let him be a fire type. But I'm not done yet, because Emboar also has stupid stats. He's supposed to be this bulky pig, so maybe he'll have a lot of HP and a lot of defense. Nope, he just has maximum attack and special attack. You don't need both, dog. So he was never really that good competitively, and he was just my least favorite starter that gets me mad thinking about to this day. Truly, an absolute disappointment. Stupid choice, Game Freak, and you know it. Gen 6, like Gen 2, didn't introduce that many Pokemon, so there won't be that many honorable mentions. Our first honorable mention has got to be Avalugg. Avalugg, man, you could have been something great. Being a glacier Pokemon could have been really cool. And they actually made him super tanky defensively, but the issue is just ice types in general, just they don't have any defensive utility. If Game Freak just gave it another typing, or God forbid, reworked ice types so they have like another resistance, Avalugg might have been good at some point, but it just never was. And that really sucks. It's just disappointing. You really just can never make a defensive ice type in this game. Another honorable mention is Carbink. Carbink is a rock fairy type, which would have been really unique if in the same generation we weren't introduced to Diancie, who is a significantly cooler and better rock fairy type, leaving Carbink completely in the dust. One of the weirdest choices they ever done. My final honorable mention has to go to Barbacle. It's just one of the ugliest designed Pokemon of all time. I know it's of okay in singles because I think it has Shell Smash and can just sweep, but I don't want to use it. There's just way too many things coming out of it. Oh, it's ugly. Ooh, don't look at me, dog. Too many eyes. But I think the worst designed Pokemon in Gen 6 has got to be Dedenne. You see, Dedenne is in a long history of Pikachu clones that have existed in every single generation. Gen 1, we had Pikachu. Gen 2, we had Pichu, arguably Meryl. Gen 3, we had Plusle and Minun. Gen 4, we had that squirrel one that actually won Worlds at VGC. That's crazy, but it's also a squirrel, so it's kind of cool. In Gen 5, we had Emolga, who is a flying squirrel. That's awesome. Gen 7, we had Togedemaru. It's a spiky shield Pikachu. And then in Gen 8, we had Morpeko, who was like Pikachu, but bipolar. And in Gen 9, we had Palmot, who is the fighting Pikachu. But in Gen 6, we had Dedenne. This thing just looks like Pikachu. It has Raichu's colors, and it's an electric mouse. You didn't even try, Game Freak. You didn't even try. Dedenne belongs there in the trash. Gen 7 is to this day my least played generation, so forgive me if I don't have in-depth reasons as to why I hate some of these Pokemon designs, but I'm still gonna give my reasons. My first honorable mention has got to be Pheromosa. Pheromosa is one of those like weird Ultra Beast Pokemon, except that it had crazy high like Deoxys level base stats, and I never understood why. Like I just look at that and I was like, that's the thing. I hate this Pokemon because it was so good and it never looked like it should be. I just always hated that. Also, I just don't like these humanoid looking things. Like stop looking like a human with hair and stuff. That's weird. My next honorable mention is Gumshoes because he looks like our president and that sucks. My final honorable mention is Alolan Dugtrio. It is why they just slapped hair on Dugtrio, gave it a steel typing, which is the hair steel? Huh? But then from a competitive side, this actually would have been kind of gas if it at least kept Dugtrio's ability Arena Trap, but it doesn't have that ability. So it's just Dugtrio, but worse in basically every single way, except the hair. Like, yeah, you have more hair than Dugtrio. Whoop-de-doo. But the worst designed Pokemon in Gen 7 is Bruxish. You probably knew it was going to be Bruxish. It's like a fish with big lips. As you can tell, I really don't like fish, but especially when the fish got like that lip, like what is that? It's just a very forgettable Pokemon, and it was never good competitively. And it's even one of those Pokemon that I don't even want it to get an evolution. Just let it die. Like, let it just disappear from existence. Why does Game Freak design these one-off Pokemon that just suck, like Bruxish and Maractus and Carnivine? Like, you know what I mean? They just make these one-offs that you know they're not going to give like a evolution to, and they just let them die. It's so lame. Gen 8 actually has a lot of Pokemon that I really like, especially the evolutions, but a majority of the Pokemon that I'm listing here are just mostly forgettable. My first honorable mention is Boltund. It's just electric dog. They just stopped trying, you know? I think what makes Boltund so disappointing is that its pre-evolution is just so cute, and you're left with this. This feels like a middle stage Pokemon. Like, this feels like it would evolve into like an electric Arcanine, you know? But no, we just stuck with Boltund. My next honorable mention is actually Reboot, which is the pre-evolution of Cinderace. Mostly because the boy comes equipped with the tracksuit. I hate when clothes are given to Pokemon. I forgot to mention them earlier, Sock and Throw. They like legitimately have a karate suit on, but I kind of love them because they remind me of Bern and Ernie. That's why they're not on the list. But I hate clothes on Pokemon. Stop doing it, Game Freak. But the Pokemon that I think is the worst designed in Gen 8 is Thievul. It's just like evil wolf. We'd had so much cooler dark hound Pokemon. Houndoom, Mightyena even. What is this? There's nothing here that's like inherently offensive. It just doesn't have good base stats, so it had no utility at all competitively. And then from an in-game perspective, he just doesn't do anything. This is one of those PC warriors, you know? You just leave them in the PC and they rot there. He's not even good for Nuzlocke. Like, he just does nothing right, except it stole my time. So you did one thieving thing, Thievul. Congrats. Now we're on to Gen 9. And Gen 9 has some goofy Pokemon for sure. Our first honorable mention is all of the Iron Blanks. Iron Crown, Iron Bundle, Iron Hands, Iron Moth, Iron Treads, Iron etc, etc. It pisses me off because most of them aren't even Steel type, so they're not even Iron. And the worst culprit of all is Iron Thorns, a future Mecha Godzilla is just iron thorns. Game Freak, come on. My next honorable mention is Dash Bun. Mostly because I don't get it. Is it edible? Can I eat a Dash Bun? Like its ears, are they donuts? If I do, will it bleed? Like, can I eat it? Someone in the comments, like, let me know, is there like lore that says I can eat it? Can I eat it? My final honorable mention is Golden Go. I just think he looks like the freaking string cheese mascot from my childhood, and I hate that. Also, from a competitive perspective, he's just really annoying. It's a very dumb design to make a Pokemon just immune to everything. I don't like that they did that. So he has been super dominant in both singles and doubles. And honestly, considering his typing is Ghost Steel, which is really good, he probably will continue to be competitively dominant for a long time. But no, I think the worst designed Pokemon in Generation 9 is Oinkloni, which is a play on baloney, get it? When Gen 9 was like leaked and stuff, everyone saw Lechonk and this guy. What a cutie. Mwah. Beautiful specimen. And so I was really excited to catch Lechonk and see what kind of beast of a Pokemon it becomes. Is it going to be this humongous pig like Mamoswine? Or is it going to be a completely different take? It's just a pig. It's just a pig. I really don't like when Pokemon look like real animals. This looks like it could exist in real life and we just chop it up and have bacon with it. There's no cool color. There's no cool design that makes it stand out. This is just an animal. Can I eat it? Can I eat it? Can I? Okay, so those are the worst designed Pokemon in every single generation. I had a lot of fun coming up with this list. If any of the Pokemon that I listed are your favorite Pokemon, please let me know why in the comments. I really need to know. And also make your own list of the worst designed Pokemon in every generation in the comments too. I want to see how different it is because a lot of people have different experiences playing these games. Thank you so much for watching and I'll catch you later. Mic drop.